He is the guest of the year. Pope Francis, the first leader of the Catholic Church to visit the Philippines in 2 decades. And whenever there's a guest, Filipinos know what's next. Everyone wants to show him a piece of everything. On social media, Rappler asks Filipinos, what do you want the Pope to see in the Philippines? From selfies to tourist sites to images of poverty, they all tweet these using the hashtag #ShowThePope. Hello, I'm Paterno Esmaquel. Welcome to Rappler. Pope Francis spends 5 days in the Philippines. The Asian country sees as a sign of hope. What did Filipinos show the Pope? We bring you the people's hope in the eyes of the Filipino. The Vatican says it's an unusual way to welcome Pope Francis. It's January 16, 2015, the Pope's first full day in the Philippines. In fighting form, the first thing President Benigno Aquino shows the Pope, a government at odds with the Catholic Church.
The courage and daring displayed.
In a speech, Aquino first praises the Church for helping fight dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Minutes later, he slams the clergy for becoming, quote, silent in the face of the previous administration's abuses.
In contrast to their previous silence, some members of the clergy now seem to think that the way to be true to the faith means finding something to criticize, even to the extent that one prelate admonished me to do something about my hair, as if it were a mortal sin.
Despite this, Francis sticks to his key message, to help the poor by rejecting corruption. He stresses this in his meeting with bishops, priests, nuns, and seminarians at the Manila Cathedral.
The poor. The poor at the center of the gospel, are at heart of the gospel. If we take away the poor from the gospel, we will cannot understand the whole message of Jesus Christ.
In the face of clashes between church and state, Francis reminds them to set their priorities straight. In his next event, one of the Pope's top priorities, Filipinos show the Pope the highs and lows of families. In a scene that drives viewers to tears, a woman with a sick baby greets Francis. A person with disabilities, the elderly, and more babies. On January 16, the Pope meets thousands of Filipino families at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay City.
My wife and I are deaf, but my children are hearing.
Facing problems like disabilities, poverty, and the need to work overseas. Despite these, Francis tells them to continue dreaming.
When you lose this capacity to dream, then you lose the capacity to love, and this energy to love is lost. It is so important to dream, and to dream in the family. Please don't lose this ability to dream in this way.
Then he slams, quote, the ideological colonization of families, a striking statement in the Philippines where church and state clash over a law on contraceptives.
The family is also threatened by growing efforts on the part of some to redefine the very institution of marriage by relativism, by the culture of the ephemeral, by a lack of openness to life.
The Pope also stresses the care for children without families. To drive home this point, he visits Tulay ng Kabataan, a group that shelters former street children. The Pope says he was very moved. Two days later, Filipinos show the Pope more of their country's youth, facing problems like information overload and prostitution. At the University of Santo Tomas, the most striking story comes from 12-year-old Glyzel Palomar. Glyzel says abandoned children fall victim to drugs and prostitution.
Bakit po pumapayag ang Diyos na may ganitong nangyayari? Kahit walang kasalanan ang mga bata. At bakit kaunti lang ang mga taong tumutulong sa amin?
Glyzel's speech moves the people's Pope. Francis says Glyzel's question is hard to answer. He says it challenges people to weep like her.
Certain realities in life we only see through eyes that are cleansed through our tears. I invite each one of you here to ask yourself, have I learned how to weep, how to cry? Have I learned how to weep for somebody who's left to one side? Have I learned to weep for someone who has a drug problem? Have I learned how to weep for someone who has suffered abuse? Unfortunately, those that cry because they want something else.
In an information age, he also urges the youth against becoming, quote, young museums who know many things but don't know what to do with these. He says the young should learn to think, feel, and act. He adds, it boils down to love.
Let us not have the psychology of the computer to think that we know it all the responses on the computer screen, but no real surprise. In the challenge of love, God reveals himself through surprises.
For God so loved the world, he gave us his only Son.
Francis sets aside his prepared speech. He explains, realities are greater than ideas.
Most precious one.
Welcome, Holy Father, to Tacloban City, to the Archdiocese of Palo.
For the most important part of his trip, the idea is for the Pope to stay in Leyte for 8 hours. Reality prevents this from happening. On January 17, 2015, Tropical Storm Amang affects Leyte, the province worst hit by Super Typhoon Yolanda in November 2013. Still, Filipinos in Leyte show the Pope their undying hope as disaster survivors. In return, Francis defies the storm and says Mass in a raincoat.
I'd like to tell you something close to my heart. When I saw from Rome that catastrophe, I felt that I had to be here. And on those very days, I decided to come here. I'm here to be with you. A little bit late, I have to say, but I'm here. I've come to tell you that Jesus is Lord, and he never lets us down.
The Pope adds Jesus, quote, can understand us because he himself suffered on the cross.
So many of you have lost everything. I don't know what to say to you, but the Lord does know what to say to you. Some of you have lost part of your families. All I can do is keep silence. And I walk with you all with my silent heart.
After his Mass, the Pope proceeds to Palo, Leyte to have lunch with disaster survivors. At the Archbishop's residence, he eats with 30 survivors of Yolanda and an earthquake in the Visayas. He spends 15 to 20 minutes there before briefly blessing the Pope Francis Center for the Poor and passing by the Palo Cathedral, where he blesses a group of priests, nuns, and seminarians. In a surprise move, Francis also visits a family of Yolanda survivors. Francis leaves Leyte at 1 p.m., a few minutes before Amang unleashes its wrath. Because of Amang, 27-year-old Cristel Padasas dies in Tacloban after a scaffolding collapsed near the stage where the Pope said Mass.
Let us also pray for her parents. She was the only daughter.
The next day, Francis meets with Cristel's father.
Yes, of course, the Holy Father was searching for words. How do you console with words a father who just lost an only child? But I think what struck the Holy Father was the statement of the father of Cristel. First, he said he felt devastated when the news reached him. And he even asked God, I have only one child, and why is she taken away from me? But then it surprised the Holy Father when this grieving father said, I have accepted this. I have resigned to the fact that my daughter is no longer with me.
Hail Mary, full of grace.
The faith of the Filipino amazes the people's Pope. The Philippines makes a mark on the leader of the world's 1.2 billion Catholics.
He said, this visit is really for me. This is for me. I'm learning. This visit is for me. Wow, that's how to be a pastor. You learn and you never stop learning.
On the plane back to Rome, Francis admits the gestures of Filipinos sometimes make him weep. That isn't all that Filipinos got to show the Pope. Rappler's partner for the People coverage, veteran journalist Joe Torres writes, I then showed him a collection of photos from social media that use the hashtag #ShowThePope that were gathered by Rappler, a partner of UK News in the People coverage. We browsed through the pages together, and he smiled when I showed him photos of children, families, and more. Here's what Filipinos wanted to show the Pope. And the Pope smiled. For 5 days, Filipinos show the Pope, the country he considers part of the Catholic Church's great frontier. The People's Pope leaves the Philippines with a strong message for all. Never forget the poorest among our people. Thank you for joining us. I'm Paterno S. Maquel.